Thanks for your patience, everyone. Looks like our attendee numbers have kind of stabilized, so I'm going to kick off our session today on office and clinical templates. Let's dive in. A couple of housekeeping items to get out of the way. If we have forgotten to mute your microphones, please remember to click on the little microphone icon to the left of your control panel. I'll also mention that there is a little arrow pointing to the right, the orange icon there. If you click on that icon, it's going to hide your control panel. And to bring it back, you'll obviously click on the same arrow to collapse and expand that out. Just hate for you to not be seeing everything that I am including in the presentation today. Also, as we go along, please feel free to type out any questions in the chat section of your control panel. We will save our questions, or answering the questions rather, till the end of our session, just to make sure that we get through all of our content. And as well, we do have a little quiz at the end of our session today, just to kind of validate some of the knowledge that you've hopefully picked up today. Okay. So to begin our session today, I'm going to start with the office side and go through a few of the template options that are available to us. So to get started, once we're in office and we're logged in, right up the top, we have in the menu WP Setup and FRM Documents. This is where you'll be able to access all of the templates specifically relating to your office functions. So your front of house functions, as you can see, we've got patient letters in there, we've got labels, in the instance that some of the clinics might be printing out labels or potentially appointment labels, handing them out to the patients for those that prefer a hard copy to take away with them. So just some examples of some of the template functions that we have available to us in the office side. Now, before we dive in, a couple of talking points I just want to get out of the way. With Zedmed Office, it is a partnership between Zedmed and Microsoft Office. What does that mean? That means not only do you need Zedmed installed on your workstation, but you'll also need Microsoft Word to link in with Zedmed so that we can actually make changes and edit these templates as you see fit. Secondary to that, with Office templates, the setup and the operation of the templates, they are quite fussy, and there's lots of moving parts that work together that allows us to perform the functions that we need when using these templates. So initially, if you're a newer site and you've registered for today's webinar, there will be a bit of setup involved with the Zedmed support team, as well as your IT support team. And the why behind that, it's just to ensure that everything's working the way it's supposed to. Your printer's been set up correctly for the paper type, or if we're using labels as an example. And also with our templates, it's not necessarily one document that you're accessing. Sometimes there's a few documents that work together to pull in information from a patient file, and that's kind of, we're moving into the mail merge, but I'll elaborate on that in a moment. So just to summarize, setting up your Office templates will need a bit of collaboration between the Zedmed support team as well as your IT or a designated staff member on site for those that don't have IT supporting them. And the key point that I'll make is that you do also need Microsoft Office installed on your machine. Great, so with that out of the way, what I'll start with is the letters. So we've got a few different sections here. I'm going to dive into the letters. Now, the number of letter templates available to us is a fixed amount. So what you see here on my test system in Zedmed should be the same number of templates that you see at your site as well. The only difference is they may have been renamed. And with renaming, if I was logged in as Zedmed support, for our older users, you may be familiar with the Medipack user, it's the admin account. With our current new release of version 31, we have a more secure method of logging into your clinic. So when Zedmed support is logged in, next to our open button, we'll have a rename button function appear. So you might be thinking to yourselves, well, what if I want to rename one of these templates as I'm making changes to it? This is what I was talking about earlier is, yes, we can rename it, but there's also some work that needs to be performed in the back end on your database to make sure that the appropriate links are still in place and that we're not kind of breaking the system. So renaming is unique to the Zedmed support team. However, editing these templates is definitely a function that you can perform. Let's take a look. So here I have my patient letter. As you can see, I'm just going to zoom in a bit for you. And now if we have the mindset of a basic Word document that I'm sure many of us have had experience with, this is basically a blank page with text on it and we can format it as we see fit. As an example, maybe I want this to appear in bold and kind of stand out on the page. So you can see nothing too out of the ordinary with my Microsoft Word. I've got my editing functions up in my toolbar up the top here. What I will mention is you can see some of the items here have these symbols to the left and right. What these are indicating is these are merge fields. So merge fields, if I can explain merge fields basically it lets you create a batch of documents that are personalized for each recipient. So an example could be your appointment reminder letters that can be personalized to each patient name. A data source, in this case a list, which is a second document, is associated with the template. The placeholders, called merge fields, like postcode and city, tell Microsoft Word where in the document to include information from the data source. And as I said, the data source is just a list with information in it. Another example is your appointment day sheet. So appointment day sheet can pull in all the patients for a particular day, usually given to doctors at the end of the day. So they can see what can kind of get an idea of the patients that they've seen that day. Fields that I was talking about. Under your mailings menu, you can see we have an insert merge field icon, which allows me to pick out specific sets of information. So you might be asking the question, how does Word know what options to give me? Well, that's the data source that's linked in with this template. So there's a separate document with these items listed, which allows us in our template file to not only link in with that list, but also pull in patient information. Once I've made the changes that I want to apply, kind of obvious, but something that's overlooked all the time, make sure you save your changes before closing out. If we don't save, you haven't made any changes and you'll have to go back in one step. I've just got a comment from one of the attendees that we're losing audio intermittently. I apologize for that. My microphone is on record, so I'm not sure about that, but please put in your commentary in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that. Just make sure if I need to repeat something, please let me know. Not a problem at all. So that's our patient letter. I've clicked on the little save icon. You can also go into File and click Save there. They both perform the same function. I'm going to close out. Yes, apologies. I'm not sure why the audio is coming in and out. Pushing forward onto our next category is the mail merge. Sorry guys, just before I go into mail merge, so I've just got some feedback from a colleague who is also logged in. She can hear the audio fine, so maybe the audio problem could potentially be on your computer end, or it's an internet speed issue where there's a bit of a delay. That's a bit out of my hands, guys. I apologize. Keep in mind, the sessions are recorded and will be available on our website. Okay. Jumping back into our documents here, so mail merge. As I said with letters, the number of letter templates available in the system is a fixed amount. Good news with the mail merge documents, it is not fixed. So you could create or add to this list. I mentioned earlier that the appointment day sheet list, let's have a closer look at this. So I'm going to select my template. I'm going to click on the open button. All right. So I want to implement some changes to this document permanently. So let's go ahead and make some edits. And again, to the right, you can see those placeholders there indicated with these two symbols to suggest that these are merge fields and they'll automatically populate information for us. So I'm happy with all of that. I've put in my title up the top left, day sheet for lunch and learn. Remember, the important step is to save my changes. So I've input that. Let's see what that looks like being used in the system. Okay, so you can see in the background there, I've got my Shea trainer name automatically in there, my day sheet for lunch and learn, and you can see it's got a list of my patients listed there in my appointment day sheet. You can see that my templates haven't been set up properly, so I'm getting an error here. Just be mindful, that's just in my test system. So out at your clinics, once we've set up and collaborated with your IT support, in a perfect world, you would be running this error-free. As you can see there, it's my patients with appointments today. And just to give you a bit of context, here's my appointments for the day. So that generated a list with my appointments for the day, and that's specifically for Dr. Cosmo Kramer. The second mail merge document we'll look at is the appointment template. This is used obviously as an appointment reminder, and as you can see, by clicking the open button, it opens up Word. I've got my cursor flashing at me. It's ready for me to input any changes that I see fit. You guessed it, I've made my changes. I'm going to click on Save. And just to show you that again, if I open it up again, we'll see the changes that I've made saved into that template. What I will show you, you can see as I demonstrated with the letters, going into mailings, I had the ability to click into insert merge field icon. This time I don't. You can see it's not letting me select that and go into it. So this is a good example of when the template and the data source haven't been linked correctly. Now this may happen at different times when you're operating. Maybe someone's gone in and made changes and maybe broken the link. It's okay, you can call through to support. It is a fairly quick resolution. We can relink that up in the back end of your database. Again, with the mail merge, if you're wanting to rename these templates, you will need to call through to our support team. Moving on to labels. Just like our letters, the number of label templates is fixed, so you can't add any more to this list. If the label templates are renamed, they will not print. Zedmed software looks for the file named, as an example, named FRM standard patient label.doc when you select the print menu and standard in the patient details form. So what I'm talking about, the print menu here, standard. What this is actually going to open up in the back end is the FRM standard patient label document. There it is there. So making changes to this document here will directly impact that print function from the patient details window. Be mindful that you do have the ability to go in and make changes as you see fit, just by clicking the open button again. And you can see on this particular template, it's wanting me to link the data source. So I'm just going to quickly do that for us. And this would be a good example of what your IT and Zedmed support would be doing in collaboration. Okay, there's my labels. Okay, so here's my standard patient label, and I can make changes to this. If I wanted my family name to be a bit bigger, for example, I can increase that. Maybe I want that whole first line to be bold so it stands out from the rest of the label. Going into mailings, you can see my data source is linked, and this particular data source has a lot more options available to us. So depending on the type of template that you're accessing in Office will dictate what options are available to you in the mail merge function here. I'm sure, as all of you know, patient labels can be used quite diversely, and different clinics have different needs for different sets of information. So that's why we have quite a long list in our patient label data source. Now, with labels particularly, there's quite a vast array of different label options that are available to you. The two ways label printers is either, beg your pardon, the two ways labels print is either on an A4 sheet or from a label printer, most commonly a Dymo label printer. To set up how the labels will print, again, you will need Zedmed support as well as your IT. Zedmed support will be able to configure Zedmed the way it needs to be. And then what your IT can do is jump in and configure the settings outside of Zedmed. So for example, the default printer, or if we're printing to a Dymo label versus a normal printer, there might be a bit of troubleshooting involved if the alignment's out, for example. Now, us at Zedmed and the support team are very well versed in everything Zedmed. When it comes to printers and things like that, it's a bit out of our scope of support, and we might do a bit of trial and error with our knowledge that we have from our personal computers and printers. But it's always nice to have the support of IT who are actually trained in troubleshooting those specific devices. Here is an example of what a data source looks like. As I touched on earlier in our session, that it is basically just a list of items, and this is what is linked in the back end to your template files. Moving on to our last category in our Office templates is the forms. Now, forms aren't fixed, so like our mail merge, we can add to this list if we see fit. Forms can be edited by selecting the desired template and clicking open, as we have done several times. And as I've described with labels, mail merge, and letters, your forms will behave in the same manner. Let's take a quick look here. As you can see. Let's have a look at that in action. And here's my patient details form, populating with the merge fields and the placeholder text. Okay, everyone, so that was a quick introduction and overview of the Office templates. There is a lot of detail that I could go into with templates. There's a lot of information, and as I said, lots of moving parts. And I'm sure our attendees today with their different experience levels have come across templates at some point or another. But I will insist for further detail, please feel free to ring through to the support team. If you're lucky, you may even get passed on to the training team, and we can give you a quick powwow on some further detail that you're looking for. Also, I will shout out our help section in our website. There is a lot of resources specifically relating to templates at your disposal. So use that as a resource as well. Okay. Let's switch hats and we'll take off our office hat and we'll put on our clinical hat. What we can spend the next few minutes looking at is basically the clinical templates. So generally speaking, what the doctors will be using quite a lot of. So clinical templates can be used to write a letter to another doctor, to create a referral or a letter to the patient. Our clinical templates can be set up with merge fields to auto-populate in your letters. However, the main difference with clinical templates is you're not required to have Microsoft Word installed on your machine. The clinical templates all operates within Zedmed itself. So we're trying to make it a little bit easier for the doctors that they don't have to jump in and out of different programs when they're in their consultations. They've got enough things to juggle as it is. So what we'll see in a few moments is the kind of inbuilt word processor in Zedmed Clinical. To access the clinical templates, you'll find that up in the Tools menu, down to Clinical WP Setup, and across to WP Templates. Just as a note, WP stands for word processing, so word processing templates. So here's a list of my templates. All clinics will have a blank letter. This is a good one to start as kind of your blank canvas, if you will, and is a good starting point if you wanted to create and format your own specific letters. Templates can be imported, but they need to be in a specific document format. So a lot of us are familiar with the Microsoft Word format being the .doc, or in more current versions is .docx. Another format for a Word document can be .rtf. Without getting too technical, basically is a rich text format. So it's a text format. What it's trying to record is the text in a very simple kind of format. So there will be times where you'll need to import templates into your Zedmed system, and I'd like to demonstrate that for you now. So on our Zedmed website, you can go into the login button, which will take you to the client login area. Now, each of the attendees today, you would assume you're the clients. So you have your own client login. So that's basically your login. And if you don't have a login for the Zedmed website, you can request an account, and the turnaround time on that's fairly quickly. So looking at the client login area, I can go into the clinical templates folder. And I know I need a Centrelink medical certificate imported into my system. So what I'm going to do is go into the official government forms folder, which will bring up a list of the available templates. Here's the template that I'm looking for. I'm going to do, I can click on that there, and you can see I've clicked twice, so it's downloading twice. There is a few different ways of downloading templates here. If you like to click on buttons, there is a button on the far right-hand side there. So now with my template downloaded twice, let's go ahead and actually import that into my Zedmed system. So I'm going to go into File, down to Import, and I'm going to click on the Browse button to browse my computer and find where that file has been saved. Oops, I think I double clicked there. Sorry about that. And I'm going to copy and paste a bit of text from my file name and give it a description. Okay. So there's my Centrelink medical certificate. I've successfully imported that. I can see it in my template selection. Now, here's an important note. I've imported it, but I also need to dictate where in the system I can access this, as well as who can access this. So once I've imported it, I like to kind of do all of this in one go. Otherwise, people tend to forget. If I download and import it, people go in and, okay, I need to use this Centrelink certificate with my patient that I'm currently sitting next to. Before we do that, do a right click. A couple of things that we'd want to do is toggle available to all users. Now, what that's saying is basically all of your clinical users or who have access to the clinical side will have access to use this template as well. If you didn't want access for everyone and just wanted it for yourself, obviously you wouldn't be selecting this. So you can see with my little icon there, I've now made that available to everybody. What I'm also going to do, this is a document that I use hypothetically I use every day. I'm going to toggle this as a quick document. I'm going to discuss the quick documents in a little bit. Because I use this every day, I'm going to mark it as a favorite as well. So now that's the setup, so to speak, that's complete. I've imported it, I've made it available to everybody, I've marked it as a favorite, and I've also added it to the quick documents menu. Just taking us back a few steps, folks. My downloaded files, you can see I should realistically have only one instance. So here's my template that I've just downloaded. I just want to talk about the process of downloading templates in the RTF format. Common behavior in this technological world that we live in is you download something from the internet. Human nature is you want to look at that immediately to make sure it indeed is the right file that you've downloaded. You just want to cite it, get your eyes on it, quickly eyeball it and go, great, that's the one I want. Now I'm going to go through and import it into Zedmed. If this file is opened, if I was to double click on this prior to importing into Microsoft Word, for some strange reason, it gets corrupted. And when you import it into Zedmed and you open it, all the formatting is blown out, columns are really squished down, and it looks absolutely terrible. So I just want to make an important note that when you're importing files into your Zedmed, to not open them before actually completing the import process. So just like I demonstrated today, I downloaded it, I went straight back into my Zedmed and I went into File and Import without actually looking at it. That will be your fail-safe method for importing templates into your Zedmed system. We get a lot of support phone calls stating that they've imported a template and all the formatting's gone out. That's exactly the reason, is because the template has been opened prior to being imported. So just to quickly showcase the Centrelink medical certificate in action. My quick documents. Where do I access my quick documents? That's this little guy sitting on the left-hand side, really small icon, looks like a little letter, and this is my quick documents menu. As you can see, right up the top is my Centrelink medical certificate, and the reason it's sitting there is because I've marked it as a favorite. I can see that with the green F there. The second reason why I can access it from the quick documents is, you may recall, I've added it to the quick documents list. Now, quick documents is great because it's accessible or readily accessible, and you can access it on the screen as the doctors may potentially be typing up their notes, and they can access those documents. I will specify that it's not designed to be your template library. It shouldn't have all of your templates. This should be commonly used templates on a regular basis. So templates that doctors and clinicians are going to need to readily access. So we find that, through my various adventures being a trainer, there's an absolutely huge list in here. And that's going to actually counteract its main function of being something quick and readily accessible. If you have to kind of go in here and hunt, and there's a scroll bar and you've got to scroll up and down, it kind of defeats the purpose. So be mindful with adding templates to your quick documents section there. Let's have a look at actually creating a new template. So I'm going to go back into my tools menu, into clinical WP setup, and across the WP templates. So I want to create a brand new letter. I'm going to go ahead and click on blank letter. Big part, I'm going to double click on blank letter, and here's my blank page. Just want to spend a few minutes actually showing you and demonstrating how we can actually create templates using a similar function to our merge fields that we were looking at earlier. Before I actually get formatting, I want to point out the data toolbar sitting on the right-hand side. The data toolbar performs the functions that we were looking at in Office for our mail merge functions. It allows us to insert placeholders to pull in specific information from a patient's record. What does that look like? Let's have a look. So first of all, I want to put in my treating doctor details. So I'm going to make sure that I know where my cursor is on the document, because that's where it's going to insert those placeholders. So first of all, I want my treating doctor's name, their qualifications maybe, and their provider number. Maybe I'll actually title my document as an example. I won't spend too much time on the formatting. And now I'd like to insert a date field to put in the date that the template's created. And now I'm going to put in my addressee details. And all I'm doing in the data toolbar is I'm making sure I can see where my cursor is and double clicking on the fields here to insert. Oops. So as you can see, I'm basically working my way through a referral letter, and I'm going to stop there. I think I've got enough information to kind of see or show you guys what that looks like in action. What I might also put in there is heading. I'm going to insert current problems list. Okay, that should work for us. Great, so quickly proof it, make sure I haven't got any typos. I'm going to click on save. I'm going to give it a name. All right. So again, to finish my setup, I'm going to make it available to all users. And I will indeed add this to my quick documents menu. So let's have a look. I'm going to go down to new letter. And what I'm going to do differently is change the template that it's picking out. So I'm going to click on the little search button there, which will bring up my template selection, choose my new referral letter, click OK. And you can see a very basic referral letter, but as you can see, it's pulled in the appropriate data points that I was looking for. I can see that it hasn't quite picked up my patient name there, but it's probably because I've been formatting it in a rush. So in a nutshell, you can see the data toolbar is a really great way to format your clinical letters. And you can see from my adventures that there's a lot of different placeholders that we can insert there. Whole series of sets of information. Just to go back to my template, there's a couple of other fields that I'd like to discuss before going into our quiz. There may be a time where you want to insert a field that presents you with options, or you can see I've got miscellaneous date. Maybe you want to choose a specific date for your letters. Maybe it's not a referral letter and you need to pick a specific date. So right down the bottom of our data toolbar, you will have insert custom field. If for whatever reason your data toolbar is not open on the screen, you can access it from the view menu, data toolbar. There is a shortcut, Control D, that you can also use to bring that little side panel up. So right down the bottom, we've got insert custom field. So I'm going to actually remove my miscellaneous date, go to insert custom field, and my field type will be date. The field name, what that's saying is what will be titled on the document. I'm happy just to say date. So I've got that custom field in there. I'm going to also insert a few different fields to show you how they perform. This time, I'm going to use list. My field name will be condition, and my field prompt will be you can see from the instructions there with the list, enter the required list items on a line by line basis, as I've done there on 3 lines. You can rearrange the lines just by moving them up and down with cut and paste. And the default item will be the first in the list. So it's automatically going to select the first item there. So I'm happy with my list field options there. I'm going to click OK. And the last custom field I want to look at is just text. The maximum length is the amount of characters that they can enter in. So rather than placeholder, let's go. Okay, so I've inserted a few custom fields. Let me save the changes that I've implemented, and let's see what that looks like from the patient record. Here's my referral letter new. And here we go. Here are my custom fields. So it's actually prompting me for information. It wants me to input information. The great thing about this is you can see my chosen date. It doesn't have to be today. I can set it to another day. Here's my list appearing here, choose patient condition, and I've got my 3 options there. And as you can see, it's defaulting to option 1. In this case, I'll go with option 3. And my favorite color isn't blue, it's actually red. So you can see how custom fields really give you a lot of ability and a lot of control as to what information is going in there. And there you go. You can see I've got my custom fields there with the specific date that I picked out. So custom fields can really work great if you need to present some options with specific fields. So thanks for your attention, everyone. That's all the content I've got through. I'd love to just spend a few minutes working our way through these questions just to see how you guys went today. Just as a friendly reminder, everyone, if we do have any lingering questions, feel free to enter those into the chat section. Okay, guys, thanks for popping in your questions there. Looks like I've got a bit of a mix of questions and a few responses to the quiz there. So first of all, let me go through our quiz answers. How do you rename an office template? I could see in the chat section there, indeed, you will need to contact and call through the Zedmed support team to assist you with that. How do you insert a mail merge field into a template? I could have probably worded that a bit better in terms of an office template. What you'd need to do is, this is assuming that everything in the back end is working perfectly. You would go up to the mailings menu in Word. Do I have a document open? You go into the mailings menu and down into insert mail merge. Just waiting for my computer to catch up. No, looks like my Microsoft Word doesn't want to open. Sorry about that. How can I make a clinical template available to all users? So indeed, I got another correct answer there in the chat. You would right click on the specific template and make available to all users. And our last question there, how do you create a date picker for your clinical templates? As I demonstrated in the referral template, that would be inserting a custom field and choosing date. Just give me a moment. I just want to look through the questions that were sent through. Just to answer your question, Georgina, when you save any letters or referral letters, as you can see, I've just opened up a patient record here. In summary views under documents, any letters that are saved, you will be able to access them here. So you can see the different categories kind of highlighting. We've got forms, letters, and then referral letters. Looks like that's all of the questions. I'd like more information on it, can only be created. So I've got a question from Janelle about your day sheet. You would like more information on it. That can only be created on a different template. Probably need a bit more information from you. That would probably be better over the phone. So if we could discuss that through either an email through to support, or feel free to call us and we can discuss that in further detail, Janelle. Thank you. I think that's everything, all the questions. I apologize if I've missed one. There's a lot of questions that came through. Just to wrap up our session, important notices: you'll need to register for all Lunch and Learns in the future. Refer to our website for further detail. As I mentioned at the start of our session, we did have some intermittent audio problems. They will be recorded and available for viewing on our website. And also, we'd love to hear any feedback that you have. Feedback allows us to grow and develop and make these webinar sessions even better and more tailored to meet your needs. So please send through any feedback that you may have to implementation@zedmed.com.au. Just some learning resources for you as well. I've mentioned the support team several times today. We've also looked at the client login area for our website. There are manuals and how-to guides there. And for those really urgent emergencies, we do have after-hours support. Thank you so much for joining today's Lunch and Learn webinar on templates. We'll see you next week. Thanks, everyone.